Thank you for tuning in to WVUM 90.5 FM. I am here with two people actually, very talented artists. Do you want to introduce yourself really quick? Nick León.
Hi, I'm Nick León. I'm an artist and producer from Miami.
And then we also have Ezra Miller joining us virtually. Do you want to say hi?
Hey everyone, I'm Ezra Miller. I'm an artist. I'm based in New York.
Thanks so much for joining us today, both of you.
Yeah.
And you guys were actually one of my favorite highlights from 3 Points last month.
Really?
Yeah. Do you want to give a little recap of how that went, your live set?
I think Ezra and I both agreed that was maybe our best one. Yeah. So we were happy to do that. I was especially happy to do it on home turf.
I think that was the best show by far. Just everything came together.
Yeah, it was the last one we have for this year too. So everything, I feel like we didn't do like a really large amount of them, but like all the ones we did kind of built up towards this one. It felt like we kind of honed in on everything that we liked about the other ones and maybe stuff that we wanted to fix. Also, the screens were amazing, and that makes such a difference.
That was insane, seeing Ezra's work on a screen like that.
Yeah.
Did you guys
totally.
were you guys working remotely for a lot of it, or did you have a chance to get together?
Do you want to answer that one, Ezra?
Yeah, I mean, we were able to spend a lot of time working on it together, actually.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, so the beginning process, it started. I did a trip down to Miami to shoot like a bunch of footage and gather raw material for the video, for the live visuals.
Yeah, I think the whole idea was like I had always wanted to kind of reflect colors and textures and things about like growing up in Florida, and I feel like I really like Ezra's eye for stuff that maybe might seem mundane but can actually be really like interesting if you look a little closer. And so like we went to the beach and we went to the Everglades and like even just like good high-rise apartment views, you know, just getting the right lighting and driving around a bunch inspired kind of the show and the visual side of it, which I think fits with the music as well.
Nice. Yeah. And you're also playing soon, right, at the Ground?
Yeah.
It's going to be another live set?
Yeah, on the 5th. Or the 4th or 5th, sorry.
The 5th,
yeah, the 5th, with OK Lou, James K, Doss, and Fifi, and who else? Kate W. Bush.
Yeah. Legendary lineup.
Michelle. Yeah, that one's going to be fun. I mean, I'm sad Ez won't be there with me, but I'm a really big fan of all the other artists involved, and I was actually going to play some of their music today later on.
Okay.
In the set, yeah.
Fire. All right, so let's get into some more Ezra-specific questions.
Yeah, I want to know stuff about Ez.
Do you want to say hi, Miles?
Hey, Ezra. I'm Miles.
Hey, Miles. What's up? What do you want to know?
So, can we just, have a little bit of background for your work with visual media, before Nick was in the picture, how you got into all that stuff?
Yeah, sure. I guess I started out teaching myself how to write code and make 3D websites and interactive websites. And I was always interested in electronic music. I linked up with Zora Jones and Sinjin Hawk. They do a project called Fractal Fantasy. And this was 8 or 9 years ago. We started working together on some interactive audio visual websites, and making videos for music that they had produced. So that was kind of my introduction to working with music. And after about maybe 2 years of doing freelance work, mostly web design projects and interactive websites, some video stuff, I got asked to do live visuals with Eve's Tumor. And that was my first real live visual job. I really had no idea what I was doing. I guess previously that year I had done a just a purely like visual piece at a music festival called Day for Night. So I was starting to like think about how to make real-time generative artwork that would fit in that context, but I'd never performed live. So um, those shows were a lot to do with like surveillance footage and real-time camera captures and like manipulation of live feeds of video. So there was always kind of like an element of site specific specificity to those performances as well, which was um, a cool way to like learn how to improvise and adapt on the fly, because often you end up in venues that have like wildly different setups, screens, dimensions, what have you. And the audio can change from show to show, and you may have to improvise as well. So I kind of developed a style that was maybe like a bit fast and loose, I guess, and like having a lot of room to experiment. And then, yeah, 2 years later, I did a tour with Object, and we did, I'd say, like more of the European circuit festivals, and I did like a sort of a more put together, um, like full length hour-long set with videos that I rendered ahead of time, and then was kind of like live mixing them. So sort of a departure from the East Tumor stuff, which was more about just like this camera feed, dynamic camera feeds. And then I guess that kind of laid the blueprint for the Nick stuff. But it was obviously like 5 years in between. There was COVID. There was a lot of like change in the music industry, I think, and I don't know. It was definitely like a big part of my practice that I was missing, that I wanted to do, that I wanted to like rediscover. So I was really grateful when Nick hit me up last year to start to work on this show. And obviously like this year was really successful, doing 6 shows, and yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, cool.
Fun fact, I saw Ezra the first time at 3 Points when you played with East Tumor, which was 2019
Yeah.
or something?
So
2018?
2017.
2017? Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty.
It's been in the cards for a while.
Yeah.
Cool.
From that moment, did you imagine you guys working together and collaborating?
No, it was more just like I became aware of his work, and I was just a fan. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So you mentioned like gathering footage and rendering stuff and sort of having like a plan for a set that you then adapt. In the programs that you're using, is it like audio reactive to any degree, or are you up there on stage like just changing things as you feel to the music manually?
It's very much just manual. I would say there's almost like no audio reactivity in our set.
I think we tried it for a second and then decided it wasn't a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I find that it's just unless you go like 100% in that direction, it's sort of doesn't always work. And like I was saying before, there is often like an improvisational element to the performance. So it's good to just perform it live. I think that's what I find compelling about that, like the discipline of live visuals, is that like I'm up there actually like doing all these transitions live and by hand, and like it's never gonna be the same from one performance to the next. So that's actually like, to me, what's enjoyable about it. I do have video that is, and like looks that are specific to each song, and those are kind of constant throughout each show. So it's more about like the transitions, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
And for either of you, how do you think live sets with visuals help shape the audience's experience at your sets?
I think for me it was more about like building. It's just like world building. It's the easiest way to put it. And I think for me, I mean, it was cool to finish the show in Florida, but it was important, especially with a lot of like the new music and stuff that we were playing, to like play to these people in Amsterdam or where like Barcelona, and show them like what I see where I'm from, this kind of thing. That's where I find the visual side helpful. And then also, like, I mean, Ezra's style kind of equals the I think with my music and his style, we have similar approaches to how we make stuff. And that definitely made it easy to collaborate.
Yeah, I think it's just like an enhancement of both elements, right? Like my video doesn't make any sense without the audio, and
Right.
the audio obviously, like you know, it could work on its own in a club context and festival context, but like just having that spectacle, that big screen to really like put you in a different place, like transport you visually somewhere else, just create something like more memorable, I think, than just having that audio. Because yeah, you may have like more of a distinct visual memory than like a.
And it makes it a little more than just kind of like a dance music thing or whatever. It's more of like a full on performance and expression, instead of just like playing tunes and that have cool visuals on the side. Which that's also fine too, but you know.
I mean, it also, yeah, it definitely like highlights the fact that you are performing like music you've composed and written and are playing it back live too. I think it's not just like a DJ mix or something.
And also, Ezra and I are like working together for my next project. Like, he's helping me with the visual side of that, so it just made sense to kind of keep it all in the same world.
Could you talk, in either both of you or either of you, could you expand a little bit about how influenced you are by like nature? Because you have a lot of different like field recordings in your music, and also in Ezra's work too. It's really influenced by, you know, just like natural phenomena that we see in the world. So yeah, could you talk about that?
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess just in general, I mean, I'm inspired by nature, because that's just like, I don't know how to
that's as good
say
as it
why.
gets.
It's just nature,
We're
you
just
know.
copying.
Yeah, I just see what's outside in the world, and I like take that and filter it through my lens. But specifically with the Nick stuff, I mean, the only direction that he gave me was like, he wanted it to feel like we're in a swamp. More or less. I mean, that was not the only direction, but that was like.
But it was basically. I think I just said like Florida.
Yeah, Florida, and then
vibe.
specifically like this kind of swampy
and then,
stuff
he was
would
like,
fit with the.
What do you mean by that? And I had to show him what I meant by that.
So we kind of planned this trip to the Everglades, to get footage, and the visuals became sort of like a representation of this journey outside from the city out into nature, into these different like environments. So we went to a beach, we went to the swamp, we went to we were in like on the highway a lot, on the just driving, and that's reflected in the visuals themselves as well, like just like really trying to reflect the environment
it's
that
funny too,
Nick
the
is
driving
from.
side, because like that wasn't something planned, but then later on it started to make a lot more sense, because I, especially growing up here and everything, I spent so much time in my car, and this kind of experience of driving, because I grew up in Broward and I would come to Miami, and it's just like, or even going to the Everglades or any of these things, it's like a trek, or going to the Keys. All of these things, like, I find inform my work and what I appreciate about here, and it was cool to highlight that without really being super. It was just there were like certain points we wanted to hit, but there wasn't anything like really specific, intentional. It was more just like colors, palettes, vibes, this kind of thing. And it's cool to see it reveal itself later on after we're just like watching all these videos of stuff.
So, Ezra, back in April, you dropped your book called Plastic Pulse. And so that was something we've been seeing a lot, like on your Instagram too, are images that are manipulated with sort of like plastic looking textures over them. And I feel like at 3 points, we saw similar textures in your visuals that you did with Nick. Is there any sort of like special meaning to you behind these textures in your work? Because we're seeing them a lot, I feel like.
I'd say the meaning is harder to articulate than my why I'm interested in this visually, because I think it's just like a great abstraction, like on top of existing imagery. It's like it takes like something that you see in reality and then kind of like distorts it and warps it and blurs it a bit and kind of enhances it too. So that's why I've been drawn to it. I don't really have like I don't know if I could distill some sort of deeper meaning. You could look at it from the context of like our world being so made up of plastic these days and like synthetic materials and what have you. But I choose to think about it more in terms of like the style that I'm drawn to for whatever reason. I just like exploring what's possible within that world. And specifically with the techniques I've been using with AI, it's really seems to work really well with these new tools because it's got this like perfect level of realism, but also like surrealism at the same time. So I chose to apply it to the videos that we were making, but also these images that I made for the book, just because I feel like yeah, like really adds this like nice surrealism to existing imagery.
Cool.
Yeah.
You have an album called Aguacero, right?
I do, yeah.
It's kind of on that same theme, right? I read a line that that you were influenced by climate change, or maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's like it's all of my stuff. If I could like point to the common denominator, it's like the experience living in Florida. So Aguacero is like, I mean, if you've been here, you know that like if it rains for more than 2 days, like the boats are coming out in the street. You know what I mean? Or like
Yeah,
your
the
car
problems.
might get might stall in traffic. So it's like just being able to see the effects of climate change in real time growing up here was just something that and my mom uses that word all the time when she talks about how it's about to rain. So like I just thought it was a great word to name the project. But yeah, it's always some kind of like thought that gets spurred by being from here or like observing things here.
You're also wearing merch that's kind of related to that, right?
Yeah,
It's the world burn.
This is my homie Juju's thing called Do Nothing. They're from New York. Not to plug them shamelessly, but I'll plug them shamelessly. He hooked me up with this hoodie because it very much is my vibe. Emoji.
I love that.
Humor.
It's so you.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, so it's always kind of been an influence. And I think with the stuff with Ezra, it was less like about being scary and more about being like highlighting the things that are just like the little things but that can be expanded on, just even just something simple as like how beautiful sunsets we get in South Florida, just the color palette and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
More of a celebration.
Maybe not a
Yeah,
celebration per se, but just more of like appreciation, let's say.
I say.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, just like observing too. I mean, one of the things that stuck with me that Nick described when we were talking about the sort of general direction was like this kind of quality of light that you get in Miami that's unique to the city, which is like just like these colorful neon lights that kind of like these little like pops of light and color that you get throughout the city at night, especially.
At night, definitely with the reflector.
Yeah. So I tried to use that as like another motif throughout the video that I made. It's like small pops of like bright color surrounded by like a lot of gray, a lot of like I mean the weather when we were there was quite like gray.
Yeah,
it wasn't very sunny
and
actually.
Nice, actually. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, and I think that also like lent itself well to the mylar like plastic textures that I was using too. It's like, um, yeah.
So Ezra, you mentioned your use of AI in generating some of these visuals. Um, as it keeps developing, with your open attitude towards the use of them, or towards the use of AI, do you have anything to say to artists nowadays that are afraid of AI taking over their jobs?
Um, yeah, I mean it's kind of a naive mentality in my opinion because uh, the, there's no replacing like a human's creative spirit or vision. I'd say I try to use AI as a tool, but also, I mean, I do find that there's a lot of uh, interesting new things that happen on their own when you let AI do its own thing. And then, as with the human, I can see that and take that and explore that direction on my own and like use that as input for some larger idea that I have. So, um, yeah, I really see it as less of a threat to my job and more of like an augmentation on top of my own uh, ideas and vision and what have you. So yeah, I think some people may have more of an effect, like it may have more of an effect on their like day-to-day job, um, just like on a smaller scale. But if you have like a vision and a artistic like perspective on the world, it's not gonna replace you.
Very true. Yeah. Cool. Um, how are we doing on time with the?
We have about 5 more minutes for an interview with Ezra, and then we'll move on to just more questions related to Nick.
Cool. So, as you guys continue working together, you mentioned you have another project in the works. Are you focusing still on providing live visuals, doing the live AV stuff, or will we be looking more at like similar things to like the album visualizer you did for DJ Python and things like that?
Mm. Uh,
I think
I
we're
mean,
just in the moment discussing kind of starting with the cover art. Just like
yeah.
simple. But yeah, we've been chatting. I don't know. I really liked kind of the process that we had of like having this idea, and then I was also, while doing these shows, like finishing my album and playing the shows kind of forced me to finish a lot of these songs. And Ezra can definitely attest to just like stuff changing over each
Mhm.
show and like songs getting different or like things happening in that way. So it's been kind of cool
Yeah.
to conjure it up through these live shows and then keep it going in this way. Now that the music is pretty much done, it's just now about kind of finalizing the general universe and everything around it. Which I feel like we already kind of did with these shows. So now it's just finding which kind of moments to highlight or what's kind of a representation of the overall theme.
Yeah.
Through image.
I mean, I think in the same way that you kind of finished the audio from doing the live tour, like I kind of figured out the visual direction a lot more strongly from doing the visuals a number of times. And when we started working together, I don't know if I could have easily been like, okay, here's the art direction for the entire
Yeah, I
album
was just like,
campaign with all
Florida,
the
go.
singles. Yeah, and now I feel like we know, you know, what images stuck out the most from doing the live set to
Right.
be distilled into album covers and single covers. So um, yeah, it's kind of a cool way to work on like a world building project for an album.
Yeah, I mean, this is my first time working with somebody else like so closely on like the aesthetics and the visual side of it. So it's been really fun to also just a, big fan over here. So it's been cool to see
Likewise.
all the also just learning about kind of AI or just how to make these images or how they work. Ezra's like whole system blew my mind when I was watching him do stuff. And yeah, I like share the sentiment that he has. Like, I don't see, if anything, like that it's here because now you can't really cling to like the usual stuff that artists might cling to that like makes them an artist. Now it's like, well, can you keep up with this world that we're in that's actually super accelerated already? So if anything, how can you even make that many paintings as like whatever, depending on what you want to do, of course. But like if you're interested in kind of like the future or like what's coming or how to push art and how to push boundaries, like this is something that opens up a bunch of other possibilities. And I mean, I've never really explored it musically, but it is interesting to see more like aesthetically, in my opinion.
That's an interesting perspective because I feel like a lot of people nowadays are more intimidated by it than.
It's just there's nothing you could do about like it's not going. So like,
Yeah.
and it is like I would just rather find it interesting because it is interesting. Like, wait, what else do we got? And right now, is not everything else kind of bleak. So it's like, at least artistically, not to get everywhere else, but like artistically, it's like we're kind of just been doing the same. Everybody's retro, and I find that really boring.
Yeah. I'm definitely on that side too of like embracing the kind of new potential for image making and forms that we can generate and create and like explore the cutting edge, because there's a lot of haters out there that are, you know, I don't know, I'd say myopic, maybe like focused on the yeah, not seeing like the bigger picture. So I've always been someone that's embracing it, I guess, and like, yeah, it's cool that Nick also feels the same way.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was all the questions we have for you, Ezra. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It was nice to see you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
Really appreciate it.
Talk to you soon, bud.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the interview, and I'm gonna tune in for the mix.
Tune in for my mix.
Okay. Peace.
Bye.
Peace. Big as Easy Mills. Cute.
All right. So that brings us back to you, Nick.
Hi.
How are you? How are you feeling? I
I'm
know
good.
you just got off your tour, right?
Yeah. I'm here for a bit, which is nice. It's been a while.
Has it been a while since you've been in Miami for a while?
For more than a week, yeah, definitely.
Gotcha.
This is I don't have anywhere to go until the end of the month, so it's a treat.
Where are you going at the end of the month?
New York, I play at Paragon in New York and
Gotcha.
Chicago.
Nice.
But
Well,
it's nice to be here. I haven't been in WVUM for. I was trying to remember the last time I came. It must have been 2019 or 2018.
yeah. You were with Alec, right? Alec?
Yeah, must have been with Alec.
Mhm.
Definitely with Pete Malero at one point,
Shout out to Alec and Pete.
and then Katarina at one point too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's funny seeing Mitch. It's been a while. I feel old.
Several generations.
Yeah, it's interesting to be here. It looks mad different also.
Yeah. Every time you come back, you're always like working on something new, or it seems you've like hit another milestone in your career.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah. But to start off, my first question was, where were you first exposed to electronic music in Miami, and how did that inspire you to start your career as an electronic artist?
The first electronic music, I think the first thing I can remember is I went to Colombia actually to visit some family, and my cousin at the time, we were both just really obsessed with downloading music and like finding stuff on whatever Soulseek or these kind of things. And he was really into Tiesto. So he was
Really?
showing me like old trance stuff, and I think I was interested in it because it just sounded like I hadn't heard some of those sounds before. And then I just kind of forgot about it and went back to Miami. And then at that time, I was in Broward actually at that time, and I in high school, another like my best friend growing up was started getting really into like this other like this trance stuff. He was really into Dead Mouse.
Wow, classics.
Yeah. This kind of like the first, I guess, EDM boom of when Ultra was pretty big and this kind of thing. It was people that I didn't really hang out with were listening more to it, but this friend, he was like the in between like my group of people and like the people that were listening to that kind of stuff. And then we ended up going. There was a club called Club Cinema in Pompano. That's a very sketchy place I wouldn't recommend going to, but when I was like 18, they'd let you in, or I was not 18, but yeah, had my first kind of like rave experiences there, and I thought it was really interesting. But I don't know, the DJing thing was more out of necessity. It didn't really feel like I was always more into making music. DJing just pays you faster. But then I like after doing it, it just like became its own art form, and I grew to respect it and found like my style and other people that I could look up to, like Danny, and there's like a rich history between like being a producer and a DJ, and I think my whole thing has always been trying to marry these different kind of expressions of music. Yeah.
Do you have any early collaborations that kind of push you forward and were just that you remember being more exciting to work with?
I mean, well, like I come from like before I was doing electronic music, I was much more involved in like hip hop and like rap stuff in South Florida. So I was around with like Denzel Curry and Rob Banks and like this era of like just after Space Ghost Perp Raider Clan and all this stuff. So I was around that for most of like I want to say it like 2014 to 2016, 2017. That was kind of more my steez and the world that I was coming up in. And that definitely shaped a lot of. I mean, I was always doing the weirder beats, and they kind of saw it because the music I was into was definitely. I mean, I was into the Florida rap stuff, but the stuff I was listening to was much more. I was listening to like Aphex Twin and Flying Lotus and this kind of stuff, and I would try to like marry the beats. And Denzel was really cool because we ended up working on some stuff. It never really came out, but some of the songs popped out here and there. But it was very like cyberpunk, futuristic sounding, and at the time it was a little too scary for the management people, but I think now it would be great. But yeah, I think coming from that world and then finding my own way into electronic music definitely shapes my approach, because I'm not really like a techno guy. Like techno didn't change my life, you know what I mean? Like I came at it from, oh, this is just another form of music that's interesting. I don't really subscribe to a lot of the, I don't know, like people make it religious sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the power of house music, which is great. It's amazing, but it's just that's not where I'm coming from, you know.
I gotcha. Yeah. So like another influence under your belt.
Yeah, or yeah. I mean, again, like a lot of the stuff I'm doing now is just kind of a return to form. Like I did start making beats because of reggaeton in 2004, 2005. Like that was what I was into, and they were making beats on FL, and I was on FL, and that was that. And then like rap stuff, and yeah, I don't know. It's just always been about finding out about music that feels like it fits into. I mean, growing up here, you hear so much different kinds of music on the radio anyway, even if you're not trying,
True.
and you don't really understand that until you leave. How like uncommon that is in other places.
Yeah, very unique to hear.
You know, so it's always, yeah, that's just been my guiding light with a lot of things.
And have you always mainly produced like on your computer on different DAWs?
Yeah, laptop forever. That was that changed everything for me. I was first on this DAW FL Studio, and then I used this one called Reason, and then I found Ableton Live, and that's been my thing ever since. Yeah.
What about for your live sets? How did that approach kind of change?
It was a bit out of necessity, 'cause my agent at the time was like, "Do you want to do live?" And I did, but I didn't really have anything planned, and he kind of just started booking stuff. So I was like, well, maybe I should figure this out. And the first one was Mutech last year in Montreal, and that was kind of like the prototype of what the show with Ezra would be. I kind of put together a bunch of music that was like half released, or like stuff that had just come out that maybe felt like wasn't getting as much attention or remixes of other things. Like it was all always just about kind of presenting the music that people might know of mine, but like in a different way. So it's not just me playing my own songs. And I really like the idea of like a arc. So it kind of it has this like dreamy intro spaciness, and then eventually just gets more and more chaotic, and then dissolves or something. But yeah, it was more out of necessity, and then like when Ezra got involved, everything just kind of. I mean, it really is like procrastination vibes, but like that's the best way to work sometimes. Is build up that pressure and then just knock out stuff. And obviously there was like, it wasn't like rushed. It was just more finding time between other shows and this kind of thing to dedicate to Alive. But I'm really happy how it came out, and I think we're gonna do way more of those. I'm looking forward to the one for Basel too, because it's gonna be quite different.
Yeah. Could you share a
Just
sneak peek?
I mean, I'm gonna be playing mostly unreleased music and stuff that I'll be putting out next year. But also just like in the context of the other artists like OK Lou and James K, I really like. I mean, both of them. More OK Lou, but I've been influenced by her. Like we've been internet friends for years, and like I feel like we approach kind of pop music the same way. So it's just more. It'll be a little less clubby, let's say, and more in that melodic in that world, but still Nick.
Nice. Another question that I had for you was on your collaboration with DJ Babatar on your track Ecstasies.
Yes,
Could you
Pedro
talk about
Elias.
Could you talk about how that came about?
Yeah, I mean, I was just a really big fan of his. I think he just told this story, funny enough, in Resident Advisor, and I had forgot that there was a day that I just went ham on Bandcamp at his page. Like, I found his page, and I think I just bought everything. And I think originally I had found out about, like, Jangatuki and Raptor House from Arca. She shared this documentary that I found, and then I realized like this was the kind of music that a few people that I was inspired by, mostly in South America, were playing, like Diana and other people. So like hearing it and being able to place it was really fun and interesting, because it felt like this almost lost genre of stuff, and I got really into it, and we eventually started talking through. I think I actually played at 3 Points. Maybe it was 2021, where I dropped one of his tunes, and it was kind of like a big moment, and I remember sharing it and tagging him, and we started messaging each other on IG. And then he kind of left the door open to collaborate, and it was like, I didn't really take it serious at first. I thought it was just being nice, and then I kind of more was showing him stuff to like see what he thought about it, and he immediately gravitated towards Ecstasies and was like, can I get the stems for this? I was like, absolutely. And yeah, it was an honor. I mean, he was just like such a figure. For me, it's like important to highlight, like I feel like there's a lot of history and press around like the American or European history of dance music, but I find that there's a huge lack of representation in like older kind of forms of music, especially from Latin America or the global South in general. So it was really cool for that to just get so big, I have mixed feelings about a lot of things, but I think overall it's good for everybody. That this stuff, gets popular or gravitates towards people, or people gravitate towards it.
And how do you find yourself kind of like incorporating that into your own musical style, like a lot of these older influences with reggaeton and Latin music?
Again, it's just like, for me, the way I try to just keep my head on straight is it's pulling from just being from here, because it's like, there is the Latin side, but I didn't grow up in South America, so I'm not gonna claim that in the way that some people might. But I do think that growing up in Miami is a very specific kind of way of growing up, like quote unquote Latino. So it's like that side of it, I just try to make it less. Because I'm open to so many other, like, this thing is like for example, right now I've been really into like juke, which I've always been into, but like Florida juke music is like such a special kind of music that I feel like now is maybe getting a bit more love. But when I was growing up, it was like there was like a handful of songs and people and dancing and this kind of thing. But it never really became like a club style that like Baltimore club or like Jersey club became. But it's just as beautiful and interesting, and I feel like that, uh, and also Miami bass and like the rap. So like it's all so there's so much to pull from. Romulo del Castillo I was talking to recently that did like Phoenicia and Schematic Records, and he's just like,
Yeah, shout out Romulo.
yeah, he's such a head. Like there's so much to pull from. I think for me the rhythms that I'm into are always just a bit more like just it's just what I gravitate towards. I try not to think about too much, you know.
And in the past couple of years, you work with a lot of these bigger artists. The first one that comes to mind is like Rosalia. Where you were on with
that's the
Mommy.
biggest one.
Yeah. So, can you talk about challenges that you faced, because
Oh, that's
her
good.
her style is like still very Latin, but you know it's different from what you usually produce. So
Right. I mean, with her, shout out to Rosalia because she really is like such a force. I would say.
she is.
I think, and just like also interested in all. Like she comes at these things with. I know she gets like a lot of flack for being from Spain and like being into trying these things, but from my experience, it was just always she's very interested and respected things to the T. Like she's not gonna do something that's just like almost a version of it. She's gonna like study it all the way and figure out what her like take would be. But I think the challenge of working with her was just being in like a I mean, just like quick backstory, basically like it was very random. My old she like followed me on IG one day and messaged me, and it was just like, oh, okay. And she was just like, I really like your music. I had released Aguacero with Nafi, this label in Mexico City, and they were also talking and were asked to send like a folder of beats or stems or ideas. And I ended up sending her stuff directly, and that resulted in me getting flown out to LA for a couple of days to do sessions. And just the challenge of being in a room where you're like, okay, I'm with like the guy that mixed all of Kanye and Frank Ocean stuff, and like his partner who just can play every instrument better than I could ever dream of, and then also like Rosalia, and she's like, hey, can you fix or can you add to the song that James Blake produced, you know what I mean? So it's like obviously a lot of imposter syndrome takes over, but it was a really big learning experience for me, just kind of being in a high pressure situation and knowing that one, I've always found that I'm like really chill around people. Like it's
chill guy.
Yeah, like it wasn't too nerve wracking being around somebody like that. They're all just people. It's just more like seeing that level of perfectionism exists. Actually, it's not just like some people aren't just like capping about being perfectionists. Like there's people that are gonna be like every single thing is going to be thought about and scrutinized over. And that, while I don't think I have that kind of mentality, I find it really interesting, and it was cool to see it in action, and I have immense respect for her after that, even more so.
Aside from the imposter syndrome, though, it must have felt validating, like at least to some extent, you know.
100%. I mean, it was like both, you know. I just being in that room, I was like, this is crazy, and I keep in touch with like everybody that I met that day. You know, we've worked like I worked with her recently to help with like a fireworks show in Barcelona. Like she respects kind of my craft as well. She hits me about like DJing stuff, and it's cool to be seen in that way.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned Nafi, because I was going to ask you as well, how do you find working with these international labels has impacted your career and helped your music spread to different audiences?
It's interesting because with both Nafi and I assume you're going to say Tracks as well, they were like, with Nafi it was interesting because I found them on SoundCloud because another friend of mine had done a song on one of the Pirata mixtapes. And I found them, and they had already been following me. And I was like, oh, what is this? And it was like the year before. They actually played at Art Basel party. I want to say it was maybe 2016 or 2015.
Wow.
2017.
Almost
I don't
10
know.
years ago.
Yeah, it was a minute ago. It was the same. That night I played also with Young Thug and Shlomo. It's kind of some
Yeah, it's
crazy
insane.
lore. But basically, yeah, I started talking with them from seeing that they followed me on SoundCloud, and discovering their music felt like finding, I don't know, like a cousin that I didn't know existed or something. It was like, wait, they're, because a lot of the rhythms and stuff I was doing weren't necessarily intentionally supposed to be that way. It just felt right. And then I realized I was just being influenced by what I was listening to or what I was influenced by. And then finding them and seeing their kind of whole spin on club music, and at that time just like more deconstructed versions of like taking whatever reggaeton snares and putting it over this gabber beat, or like doing these weird edits of Mark Anthony or something. That it just, I was like, okay, this is my home. And then we became friends in real life. I played in Mexico City a bunch. I would go visit. I would use the studio. We would conceptualize things. I ran their NTS show for like 2 years. So I think in that way, I mean, it was just cool to get connected more with like Latam and like playing in Mexico City, definitely. And with Tra, it was similar in that they were just friends. Like Laura Bitterbabe lived here, and she knew the guys that founded it, and we were friends at the time making music, and then like we all just got introduced and were in this kind of mutual project at the same time, and it just took off in its own way. It was really organic. So I think yeah, I don't know, it's been cool to link up with them because also feel like Miami should be included in these things. Like I've put on or Katarina put on the last tour flyer that I did. That was like the South America tour, the Latam tour. Like the last date was like Miami, so I was like, this makes sense.
Yeah, it's an extension for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope that answered a bit.
No, yeah, definitely. Another question I had: could you share a favorite memory from performing live and the venue that it took place at? Because you performed at a lot of different places.
Performing live with Ezra or just playing in general?
No,
like
in general, it could be DJing.
That's a good question. I think maybe the one that sticks out the fastest is I played in this place called Ljubljana, which is in Slovenia,
Oh wow.
which I was thinking was gonna be like a boring whatever show, and I actually, at that time, it was my first European tour, and I was so fried from the weekend before playing so many shows that I forgot my passport at my agent's house. So I got to the airport, I got to the plane, and as I was about to board, I realized I didn't have my passport. So I had to like run back to the apartment and get it, and at that point had missed all the flights to Slovenia, where I had all my other flights for the rest of the weekend. So basically that meant I either had to cancel everything, or my agent at the time was like, we're gonna drive. Because I was in Berlin, and it's maybe like a 8-hour drive or something. And so he rented a car, and we literally drove through the Alps from Berlin to Slovenia. I got there at 1 a.m. I was supposed to play at 1:30, and slept, woke up. I'm in this like, it's almost like Soviet style like bunker thing with graffiti everywhere and just all these punk kids, and it was just packed, and the person playing before was playing like they did their homework, you know what I mean? And I got on, and I didn't want to stop. Like I must have played like 3 hours, and then almost an hour over, until I felt bad. Like there was somebody who was supposed to play after me, so I was like, no, you have to go. But it was, yeah, just I think because it's so unexpected, and also just the energy and getting there after all these like trials and tribulations made it pretty memorable. But I would say that, and playing on a boat in Sicily was really fun too.
Wow. Amazing.
Boat party vibes. Yeah.
Do you find that the venue that you play in, or like the atmosphere of the venue, it's really important to crafting like a good set?
100%. Yeah. Down to the light. Like if it's bright on me, you're not gonna get a good set. Or I'm just gonna be really like serious and staring at the decks the whole time. If it's like if I'm on a stage, that's a different kind of set. You know what I mean? Like I really am, unfortunately, for better or for worse, sensitive to these things. I try to like put it on the rider now, like no direct light and this kind of thing. But I always prefer being in the crowd. I played in recently in South America in Quito. That's another one that I really remember. It was in a museum that used to be like a military hospital or something like this in Quito, and basically it was just like a courtyard and everybody was around the DJ booth, and that is like that's peak for me. Like everybody just there around you dancing.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I want to be in the crowd. I don't really like being above.
Yeah, it's nice when it's merged together.
Yeah, especially with DJing. Maybe live it's different, but DJing, like there can't. I feel like there shouldn't be that much of a separation. Otherwise, we're on two different pages, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another question I had was, when it comes to the music that you produce, how do you hope that it connects with the people that listen to it? Whether it's on the dance floor or just playing it by yourself.
I mean, I'm happy if it connects at all, but I think like I wouldn't call it new because I was making stuff that I would consider more like headphone music before that. But I think with this next project, it's a bit more like intentionally that. And I would hope to. I was just thinking about all the music that I listen to, especially on tour, and that it's not really like club music in the traditional sense. Maybe it's electronic music or like electronica or something like this, but it's moodier. And I find like I haven't really heard too much stuff like that recently that I just felt like I could express myself in that way, and it'd be nice to like be somebody's like train rider, bus rider. In transit is probably my ideal situation for people to listen to my music.
I see. Could you share anything else about this upcoming project? Could we expect any features on it?
Well, the song I did with Erica the Cossier is gonna be on it.
It's gonna be on it.
That's kind of like a good barometer for. There's not necessarily another song that sounds like it on the record, but that's the palette. You know, it's this like. It's a mix of all the things that I like, and trying to put it all in one big soup, instead of just like focusing on separate genres or this kind of thing. I also have a track. The intro is with my very good friend in Florida, legend Bear, who performed as Taru with Fate at 3 Points. So he's that's like my OG. Johnny from Space is on one of those tunes. It's very much a like Miami record, in the way that I would want to express that. Yeah, could give you more details when I have more. But yeah, definitely. I would love to do some kind of show or something when it's time to release here.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, one last question that I have for you. If you could, you talked about juke before, but
Yeah.
if you could like explore any genre that you haven't really played with yet, what would you move towards?
The one that I've been thinking about right now, it's kind of funny to say because I used to make fun of Johnny for all this stuff, but I've been really into like figuring out how to make at least if I'm gonna make like the next club stuff I'll do, like dub techno or like minimal, which I found extremely boring before, but now I kind of opened up my ears to, or just figuring out how to make that work with my sounds. Feels like a challenge because I always feel like I'm also adding so much stuff, so it'd be nice to force myself to be a little more minimal. And then on the other side of it, just making straight up songs like I'm really into pop. It's my favorite.
Nice. Yeah, I have noticed that you incorporate a lot of pop into your
Yeah,
music.
I think it's valid. I like when experimental artists incorporate it. I think my favorite people know how to do both. Like Rosalia is a great example. She's like she kind of gave me the confidence to follow that as well. It's just like I like this kind of music, but I also like when it's weirder or people take more risks. So like Arca is also a great example.
Yes.
Okay, Lou. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks
and
for having me.
Yeah, for answering all of our questions.
Yeah.
We can expect to see Nick at the Ground December 5th, right?
Yep.
December 5th for Art Basel Miami.
Yeah, 3 points.
If you guys are in town, feel free to stop by. But we're gonna move on to a DJ set from
Yeah,
Nick.
yeah. Cool.
So make
Play
sure
some
y'all
tunes.
keep it locked into the voice. And thanks so
Sweet.
much.
Thank you.